Hello, good evening everyone, and welcome to a new live stream. And in this live stream I'm going to create a timing system sort of comparable to my public WES timing system. If you're watching this, most of you will probably know what that timing system is. In case you don't, after this live stream I'll post a link to that model in the description to get an idea what I was referring to. But now I am going to try to create a timing system, and the timing system will keep track of is supposed to keep track of your lap times. Basically a timekeeper. We're going to start with the basics. I'm first going to create a timekeeper more of, and then depending on how far I get in this live stream, which is going to be about an hour, hour and a half, then I'm going to expand that script and create a proper timing system, just like the public version. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a little timekeeper. So I'm going to do that with the help of a screen GUI. So I am inserting it here. Then I want to create, let's add a button. First of all, let's keep it very simple to begin with. Actually, let's do a frame. Let's create a frame. Let's make it look a little bit nice. I want this frame to be, let's do this, then move it to, the chat's usually up here in most games, so let's put it down here. Let's resize it as well, move it down, minus 270, let's do this, so our little UI is down here, our little user interface. Let's call this frame timekeeper, doesn't really matter what I call this, and let's call this button start. And I am going to move this button. I'm going to keep it wide. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to waste too much time on the looks of the button. Let's keep it. Let's keep the default fonts. Why not? Say 30, 100. Then move it. Let's put it in the middle for now. I'm only going to need that button first. What I'm going to make first is a button where if you click it, then it starts the timer, and if you click on it again, it stops the timer. Oh yeah, and I'm going to add a reset button as well. So it's going to be a little stopwatch what I'm going to be making initially, and then you'll see as this live stream progresses how you can turn this into a timing system. And then we want this button to be near the bottom. Let's do 80, let's do 60 instead, that's good. Let's put the reset button on the left. Let's see, that would be minus 120. There we go. Let's make this button slightly red, just so we know what we're dealing with. And then I want, then I want to add a text frame here. Let's call it clock, or it's not the most accurate name I guess, or timer, whatever. Put it in the middle. Minus 100, then move it 40 down, let's do that. Yes, that's fine, let's make the text white. Make it a bit larger, so let's do 24. Make the text bold, we can actually do 32, yeah. Then we are going to do this. Yes, there we go. That will do for now. I'm actually going to make it a bit larger. Let's insert a UI skill. Let's make it larger for if you're watching this on mobile, that you'll still be comfortably able to see what's going on. So this should make it pretty clear what's going to happen, or this should make it pretty visible for everyone watching, even if you're on mobile. There we go. This should be good. Maybe a bit large. Let's do 1.6. There we go. That's fine. And now let's start scripting. So because we are dealing with a screen GUI here, I am going to insert a local script. Again, going to zoom in a little bit in case you're watching from mobile. I'm going to keep the local script name for now, or timer script. Actually, I'll rename it to timer script. Then I want to, we don't need to refer to the player yet, I reckon, but let's do it anyway, because eventually we want to be able to refer to the player because we want to be able to detect our player character, which is what the public timing script does. But we'll keep things relatively simple for now. We're first of all going to make a simple timekeeper. Then I want to refer to the timekeeper. Let's refer to it as frame. So frame is script.parent.timekeeper. We're starting things simple, and then we want to declare some variables. So to think quickly. What do we want to keep track of? Obviously the time, but how do we define the time? So I think we'll define two things. We'll have current time. No, let's do, we want to pinpoint at what moment we started our time. Which will be 0 in this case, and we will pinpoint what our last interval time is. No, that's not the right name. Let's just call it stopping time. So when we stop the timer, basically. Okay, then we can start defining things. We want to create a function that will initiate the timer, and I want to create a function that will stop the timer. So we will start the timer, and to start things off by, this will be really simple. We want to basically know at which point in time we started the timer when we click the start button. And so we'll do that simply by saying starting time equals time, or elapsed time. Alternatively, you could also do this. It doesn't matter, those two values are different. I don't have the ROBLOX Wikipedia page ready, or the developer page, but basically this measures how long time this value here will return for how long the game has been running, basically, or for how long the server has been running if you use elapsed time in Workspace. So now we know when the time has started, and now I want to add another function that we call stop timer. And then what we want to do is declare stopping time as time again. Pretty much the same as starting time, except that we are defining stopping time here. And then I'll create an extra function that will show our time. So if we had a certain start point and a stop point, we can take our stopping point and then subtract the starting point. So for example, we started our timer 10 seconds into the game, and then we stop it at 20 seconds into the game. So 20 minus 10, that would be 10, for instance. And to want that time, let's call it delta time. Let's declare another variable for that. Delta time equals stopping time minus starting time. And then I'm also throwing in a reset function as well. that will reset everything. That's going to put this. So starting time will be 0, stopping time will be 0, and delta time will be 0 as well. So let me add some comments. I actually don't have to add comments because it's pretty obvious what's going on right now. Now I want to make sure this function is being called when I press our start button over here. We can do that. So let's do make a section down here called events. This is just a comment, by the way. This doesn't do anything. You don't have to add this bit. But it's just for convenience to make your code basically easier to read in case someone else has to look at your code as well. So it's easy to understand what you're doing, trying to keep things organized basically. But anyway, we want to make sure that when we click on our start button, our timer will start, like so. So then we have to refer to our start button. We can do that by going to our frame, which we defined up here. And then we want to refer to the start button, which we do like so. And then we want to refer to an event called mouse button one click, which means if you click the button, then this event will be triggered. Then we have to add a connect, and then we can fill in start timer without a brace. I don't know why Roblox does this. You don't need to add the braces here, the brackets, I mean. So then if we press this button, then we start the time. And well, here's the tricky thing. We also want to not only want to be able to start our time, we also want to stop our time. Actually, let me create a new function for this. Button functions. What we want to do is once you press start, the text here will change to stop, and our start button will turn into the stop button, and then when you press that button again, it will stop our time. So what we will do is I'm going to create another function, start button, and we also want to make sure to be able, we also want to be able to tell if our button is enabled or not. So in this case it's false for now. So we want to do if not enabled, so if the timer hasn't started yet, we want to start our timer, and we want our button text to change from start to stop. So we refer to frame to the start button, then we write dot text and then equals between the double quotes stop. And then what do we do if our timer was already enabled? So if not, so if it is enabled, then we go here. Then we are going to stop our timer, and then we will say that our timer will start again. Okay, sounds cool. Now we should be able to keep track of the time, but I'm not going to test now because nothing will happen once I press start. So I first need to make sure that we actually see some stuff happen when we press the button, because I can't tell you that the button will work. Of course, I need to change this as well. I will quickly demonstrate that the button is indeed working. So timing started. To print quickly here to show you that it works. Timing stopped. So if I hit play and look at the output down here, if you're mobile, it's going to be a bit hard to see. Oh, I see I made a mistake. That can happen. Line 1, game.play is not game.player, but game.players. There we go. A little typo right there. Now it should work. We don't see any errors, which is good. This is unrelated. Then I hit the start button, and you see down here it says timing started. If you press stop, it keeps saying timing started, and that is because I didn't change the enabled state. So I need to write enabled equals true, enabled equals false, so it actually toggles between the two things. Or if you want to be a little bit more efficient with your code, you can also write down here enabled equals not enabled, so toggle between the two states, if you will. Okay, so let's quickly test that out again. Timing started. You can also see that the button now shows the stop text instead of start. Timing has stopped. As you can see, of course, nothing happens because we haven't scripted that bit yet where the timing shows. So probably the values have changed, but now we need a way to display those values on screen. And that's what we're going to do with the showtime function here, which actually isn't being used at the moment. So what I want to do is I want our delta time to show up on our clock right here. So what I have to write is frame.clock.text equals delta time. And if you have some programming experience, you might, and you're not experienced with Lua, this might be a red flag if you're using C#, for example, if you're used to that. Because I'm trying to I'm trying to make a number my text, not a string, but a number. Don't worry, in Lua you can get away with this. You can put a number as a text, and Roblox, Lua, the scripting language that Roblox uses, will automatically convert our number to a string. So this is in case you are, oh, I forgot to do one thing. Hold up. We are not calling our show time anywhere, so that means nothing happens. We want to put this down here. So we're going to do when our timer has stopped, our time will show itself. So let's hit play again. Let's hit start. Let's hit stop. And we see a number with a lot of decimals. Let's do this again. I'm going to wait a few seconds. There you go. You see it works, but there's a lot of decimals behind dot. And that's because that's how precise Roblox apparently is with numbers. But we don't care about all those decimals. We only care about 3 decimals actually. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of those 3 decimals. I'm going to create a function in advance that we call number to time, a little help function that will have 1 argument, and that is our number. And we want to take our number and change it so that it displays the time. Or so it's rounded up down to only 3 decimals behind the dot. So what I'm going to do is make use of a function that's called math.floor. And what math.floor does is it rounds a number down to the nearest full number, or the or not the nearest, but because if you had put 1.8 in here, if this were 1.8, it will round down to 1. Basically, it's going to round down to whatever is on the left side of the dot. We don't exactly want that, because that would, if we were to do this, we also have to make sure that our time is applied. So we're going to convert. So this is our little converter we have over here. So you're going to see what's going to happen now. Now it's going to only round down to a full number. So in this case, I held the time was going on for 2 seconds, which is not quite what we want. We want our timer to be a little bit more precise than that. So what we're going to do is we are going to do this times 1000 and plus 0.5 to make it a little trick to actually make it round the correct way, because for example we want to make from actually we don't really have to do this since it's the time, because if a second hasn't gone by then nothing has happened. I'm by the way wondering right now if the stream is actually going on right now. I believe the stream is. Could anyone please confirm the chat that the stream is indeed up and running? Because according to my YouTube it's showing the stream fine. It's only complaining about the usual bit rates too high, but that shouldn't be the issue. Anyway, I'm going to continue on with this little tutorial. So I want to make this number 1000 times as high. So add effectively 3 zeros behind the our number, and then we want to round that number down this bit, and then we want to divide it by 1000. And what's going to happen then is that, okay, stream is fine, that's great. So this little trick is going to make the following happen. It's going to show us 3 decimals now, and there we go. So I'm going to count this as 3, 4, almost 5. There we go. And then our reset button doesn't work yet. Let's sort out our reset button actually. So frame dot reset dot mouse button 1 click connect reset. So if we click our reset button, it will call this piece of code here, and let's throw in another show time as well, so it actually updates our text here. So what's going to happen when I test this yet again? I'm going to stop, I'm going to click reset, and it goes back to 0. I'm going to have this thing go, our timekeeper, run for a little bit. 6.8. Actually, it's around actually a pretty precise number for a change. That's cool. Reset. I also want to display 3 decimals at all times, even it's 0.000 for instance, which our timer doesn't do automatically. As you can see now, our timer is it's getting there, but before I get into the proper rounding thing, or how to properly display the time, that is, I first want to make it so if I click start, I get to see the timer go up live. Like it's not like once I press stop, I only then see for how long the timer has been running. I want to see for how long the timer has been running at all time, if you know what I mean, kind of like in the Formula Roblox game. So what I am going to do is I want basically our show time to be constantly updated at every single opportunity. So this is actually pretty redundant since we're doing this here, defining delta time here. So basically here again, so I'm removing this line here. So we want this code to be executed pretty much all the time. Actually, we'll want to extend this in a moment as well, because let's just start with the loop, what I want to do. So I want to create a loop. Let's do it all the way down here, which is going to be a while through do loop. And let's do a wait, so it updates as pretty much as much as possible, not quite as much as possible. We'll get to that soon as well, don't worry. Okay, so what we want to do is every time this thing updates, it does the show time thing, but this won't quite work the way you think. Like I can show you. Actually, I can jump back into Studio. I can play test. As you can see, it does update it to 0, but stays that way. This is interesting, and I know why this is happening. Is because I can tell you what's going on, why it's showing a negative value. What happens is when I hit start, the starting time goes up to, this becomes like 2 or something, but stopping time remains at 0. And what happens here is it's going to take the stopping time, which in this case is 0, and then does -2, and then you get a negative value. So that's not what we exactly want. This showtime thing needs a little bit of expanding. It doesn't quite work. So what we want to do is, if not enabled, so if our time isn't running, then we want our delta time to be stopping time minus starting time, and otherwise, if our timer is running, then I want delta time to be time, so the most actual time minus the starting time. And also I may now remove this starting time here because it's being executed constantly here anyway, so no need for the showtime function to be called here. Okay, now we're going to test this script out. Going to hit start. Yeah, this looks really wonky because yeah, we're getting there, but this yeah, you get an idea how this works. It sort of works, but it doesn't look pretty. Something is not right yet, and that's because sometimes the screen gets significantly smaller because of how rounding works. Let's actually change the font of our clock to the code font. I think that would look better. First of all, let's see how that looks. That should make our timer look a little bit more clean, I would say. It's more constant, but it flickers a little bit, and that's because sometimes the number has only 1 decimal, sometimes has 3 decimals. We don't really like that, but we are certainly getting there. So now I want to go back to this bit over here, and I want to expand it so it always shows 3 decimals. And I believe there's a trick to do that. I recently found it out. It's a string trick, string.format. I don't know by head, so I have to Google it very quickly. What the exact command was. Something I recently learned. Let's change it to output first. Let's declare a new variable and then eventually return this output because I want to do more stuff with this. So first we have our decimal number, which is fine in itself, but we want to make it better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this magic trick called string.format. This is supposed to be output. And string.format, you have to look it up on the developer page of Roblox. I'll actually put a link in the stream right now in the stream chat, so you can have a look at that article. But basically, you can make sure that your string displays a certain format, but it's quite arbitrary. You have to basically learn what you have to fill in. Yeah, okay, let me think for a second. I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. So I'm pretty much copying this from the page right now. But if you do this, I know this looks really complicated, but we'll get around to it. But basically, I can't explain this one yet because, again, I only recently found out that this existed a few days ago. But what this basically does is it guarantees that there's always 3 decimals, or at least that should be the case, that there's always 3 decimals behind the dots, except I don't care about the dollar sign. I know why the dollar sign is here, because in the example that's on the dev page, it's supposed to be used for a store. There's just an example, so you don't need the dollar sign. You can put anything in front, like time, and it will do the trick. But okay, let's break it down quickly. The percentage is your current value, and the .3f means it's going to be 3 decimals behind the dot. So if I test this again, there we go. This looks a lot better. This looks a million times better. What happens if we press reset? Okay, this doesn't work. The reset doesn't quite work because it, nah, that's not really what I wanted with the reset. I need to change the reset button as well. But actually, now we have this, I think that our first line, our rounding is actually unnecessary. So if we remove that line, so we go here, yeah, there we go. Looks a lot nicer. But we first need to sort out our reset button and go straight back to 0. So I want to go to reset. And I also want to make sure that enabled becomes false. And actually, let's change the code a bit. I want to put the enabled thing, start timer enabled equals through. And when the timer stops, we want to disable, say that enabled equals false. And if we reset, I also want enabled. No, let's do it a quicker way. I want to straight up call the stop timer function. And I am going to include start timer here as well. Text changing. Let's put it here as well. So what I've done now is I've expanded the reset button so it also stops the timer before, so it automatically presses this button, the stop button, before reset. So now we are going to test our timer again. Going to press start, click reset, and it automatically goes down to 0. So I'm going to press start again. Can run around the track. Doesn't run my character doesn't run too fast. I'll change that in a minute, because after this we're going to do a little bit more exciting stuff. We are going to apply this. I first want to create a little extra script so our character can run really fast. Local player equals game dot players dot local player player dot character dot humanoid, or let's do wait for child humanoid. So if humanoid hasn't loaded yet, it actually waits a little bit before because otherwise you may get an error if you don't write dot humanoid. So wait for child humanoid dot I think walk speed is the right property name. Let's do walk speed 200. There we go. Now if we run, then our script should, our really short speed script should. There we go. Now we can walk fast, and now we can actually use our timer here to keep track of the time. Of course, you guys probably aren't here for that. You are here for a more automated system, so that the timer starts working once you hit start. Once you go across the starting line, and so it stops when you hit the stop line. So press the reset button. I was meant to start the start button, but okay. Press the start button, but okay. So now we're going to move on to automating our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of the start button. Our reset button can stay where it is. So I know it doesn't look, the user interface doesn't look optimal, but we're not going to worry about it too much. Also, let's change the default text to 0.000. That would be more accurate, since we don't have, we can't distinguish seconds from minutes quite yet. We'll maybe get to that in the stream. Otherwise, we will get to that in another stream or another time. But now, instead of the buttons doing the work, let's remove this first of all. Let's comment this section because we don't need our start button anymore. We want our start button, or let's rename it to toggle timer. That would be a more accurate function name. So this thing doesn't work anymore. So if I were to test, the start button doesn't work anymore if I leave this out. That's the idea, because I want this to be triggered and when our character crosses the start finish line. And we're going to do that by taking this part over here, and we're going to make this our start line. I'm going to make it a bit wider. It's non-collide, that's good. I'm going to make it green. I want to make it smooth plastic, and then I'm going to make it somewhat transparent. Let's do this green instead. That looks a bit better. So the idea is, when our character first walks through here, a lap will start, and when our character walks through here again, the lap will stop. And that's the basic idea of that. So let's start, let's actually give our part a specific name, and let's put it in workspace for now. Let's call it start. And let's add a piece of code here that will refer to our start part. So our start part would be, or actually let's do it a little bit differently. Let's not refer to start part here. Let's just add a touched function here. You see a function here. You'll see what this is supposed to do, but we basically want to trigger this function, our touch something function, which is going to deal with our character touching something. If our character, wait for child's head, hit something, so dot touched, not equals connect touched something. And what's pretty neat about this bit here, that if you connect this function to a touched event, then this argument here immediately gets a purpose. It already gets defined. So our part, in our case, what happens is this part becomes the part that our character's head interacts with, which would ideally be our start part, but could also be anything else. So what we first want to check, first what we want to do is, if we touch something, we want to make sure that we are touching our start part. So what I'm going to do is if part.name equal, check if our part's name equal start. And if that's the case, then we continue, and if it's any other part, we'll just skip right through the end and nothing will happen. So what we want to do very simply is start our timer once we go through the start part. This won't work perfectly at all. We haven't factored in sectors at this point, but this should probably work pretty much. Yes, we went through the start part. Let's do a lap of this course. This has its flaws, however. It has multiple flaws actually, which we'll get to in a second. But now we do a lap of our little course. We run through our start part again, and it has automatically reset itself. Okay, did it touch twice or only once? What exactly happened? Okay, it resets. What did I exactly do? I didn't want to have it start timer. I mean, I guess I could do that, but it's not what I exactly wanted. What I wanted to do was use the toggle timer function. Where's our toggle timer? Here. We wanted to execute this thing, not this. So, I am going to make our character run. I'm going to run through here, and ooh, this looks very interesting. It immediately stopped as soon as we went through here. It's very inconsistent, as you can probably tell. Sometimes it registers 2 touches, and sometimes it registers only 1 touch. We don't want that to happen. And this is where our sectors will come into play. So let's duplicate this part, rotate every 5 degrees, that's fine. Let's make sure this is a little bit, is this straight? Yeah, this is 90 degrees. Good, let's make it yellow. And let's change the name of our part to sector 1. Then we want to duplicate this part, place it, let's put it, doesn't have to make perfect sense where the sectors are. It's just for the sake of having an example. Let's put another one here. Let's make it orange because orange is a very cool color. Let's name it sector 2. And so we have 2 checkpoints that our character has to go through in order to get an effective lap count. So what we want to do now is I want to get rid of this enable thing. I'm going to mix it up, and I want let's keep the enabled thing for now, but I also want to define a sector variable which will keep track in which sector we are. So to make it clear, the idea is once we pass through this green part, so when we start a lap, we will be in sector 1. When we pass through this part here, we are in sector 2. If we pass through the orange part, we will be in sector 3, and we should be making our way back to the starting line. And when we then cross our starting line, then it should count a lap. And so, for example, if you go from green to yellow and then back to green, the lap won't count, nothing will happen. You cut too much, you missed a sector, which will cost you a lap count. So when we go through our start part, let's make it so it's our sector either 0 or, so either we haven't started a lap yet at all, or we were in the final sector. Only then we will actually, let's keep the toggle timer for now. We're going to have to change this later down the road. Then we are also going to check if we are not going through the start part. We want to check if we happen to go through the sector 1 part. And what happens then is sector equals 2. We also want to put sector equals 1 here. So we are in a different sector. If we hit the sector 1 part, we will be in sector 2. And also we want to make sure that we were in sector 1 beforehand. And again, if we were through, and if we're passing through the sector 2 part, so if we are entering sector 3, then we're going to say that we are in sector 3, and of course you have to be in sector 2 in order for this part to work. And also to quickly show you what's going on is I'm going to print in what sector we are in at all times, and we're going to like so. So every time we touch a part, it's going to tell us down here what we're going to see down here in which sector we are. So as you can see, we are in sector 1 now. We're going to cut the corner a little bit. We are now in sector 2. As you can see down here, if you're mobile, you probably can't read it, unfortunately. We're going to cut the corner. Now we are in sector 1. Oh, that's not what we wanted. We should be in sector 2 now. Sector equals 3. What's going on here? I don't exactly know, in fact. Why are we suddenly back where we started? I know why, because this section has to be between parentheses. So what happened was our script read this section like this. So what happened was we touched to the sector 2 part effectively twice. But what happened was it went through this piece of code and then it checked if we were in the start part. No. And then so this section was false, so this wasn't true. But then it went to check on this section here. Were we in sector 3? And because we just declared that we're in sector 3, this becomes true, and then it goes to this section. So that's what went wrong. Case of putting the parentheses in the right places. So to avoid this, we want to make it so that if this is false, then this whole thing can never be true. So if we're not going to the start part, then we can never get down here. And if this happens to be true, then we're going to check if we're either in sector 0 or sector 3. So now our script should work correctly. We're going to walk through here again. Sector 1, we're now in sector 2. And now we're not in sector 3 somehow. We're still in sector 2 apparently. Now we're in sector 3. Apparently the game didn't detect that I went through the wall. Apparently it didn't count for some reason. Let's try that again. As you can see, it now shows our time, but it isn't moving. So now we're going through sector 3. Now it starts the lap. What's going on here? I'm going to take a quick moment to read the chat before we move on, but it's clear that our timer isn't exactly working. But that's fine, because I knew that this was going to happen. Okay, is this a new track? This is a new track, but it's not. But it's purely for this tutorial and maybe for future tutorials. Hey bro, can you help me build a script on my game, please? Could you talk in Discord? I don't take requests. I don't accept any developer roles right now for anyone. I'm busy with my own game and with university in real life and with other stuff. I basically don't have the time nor interest to work on your game. I'm sorry. Let's see, anything else? No, that's it in the chat. Okay, back to the tutorial. Okay. So what we want to do is change a few things. I want to check if we are in the third sector. So if sector equals 3, then so if we were on the lap, then we should stop our timer. It's going to be a bit more than that, and then after that we want to start a new lap, so start timer. And I'm actually going to change the writing so you can always start a new lap. So I'm going to remove this section here. But if we run sector 3, then it's going to stop the timer first. But there is a little issue with that, however. What I ideally want is you'll see what's going to happen in a moment, but it isn't working. Not sure why, because it wasn't detecting. That's also a little bit annoying that it sometimes doesn't detect our character walking through. I'm not sure why that's the case. That doesn't tend to happen very often. There we go, 3, and yeah, it immediately resets. We don't get to see what lap time we just set, and of course we want to get to know what lap time we just did. Let me make the parts a bit wider so the game will actually detect that we are running through the parts. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that there's a brief moment where our last lap time will be shown, or at least it will appear somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this part to current timer. I'm going to change this to last lap. So I am going to move this one a little bit up here. I'm going to move this a little bit down. Let's see, 60. And then make this a little bit smaller, this smaller clock, and let's make it yellowish. So this will basically reflect what our last lap was. And I think we may need to store that somewhere, I reckon. Yes, we do. Actually, we kind of don't. And that's where the enable thing will become will be completely useless, I guess. Not, well, it is. Because we're always going to be running a time. Let's remove the enable thing because we're always going to be in this scenario 9 out of 10 times. Also, I want to add another variable, last lap time. I'm a little bit rambling at this point. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry for that. I hope this tutorial is you can still follow this tutorial quite well. Apologies if you can't. But anyway, where were we? We need to define a last lap time as well. We don't need a toggle time anymore. Well, let's keep it in here in case we want to use this thing again, but we don't actually. Let's see, stop timer. So stopping time and starting time should still be relevant, I guess. Let's include, this is where the last lap time will come into play. So last lap time will be stopping time minus starting time, like earlier, like the code that I removed in Showtime. And now I want to add a second. This isn't called clock anymore, this is called current timer now, or let's just call it current to keep things short and simple. Our first text, so this is going to, the white thing over here, this is going to display the time at all times for how long we've been on a lap, and the yellow thing will show our last lap time. So we're going to write text here, and then we're going to write number to time. And then we will write last lap time. We're going to use this function again that will nicely make sure that there are 3 decimals behind the dot when showing our time. Oh, it already started, okay. I know why, because we still need the enabled we still need our enabled timer, so it doesn't freak out straight away. So showtime. I guess I can still, if enabled, then we do this, and we'll do this regardless of if our thing is enabled or not. Oh, I guess we can also, if we are having the reset button still, we can also make it so our last lap time will also be reset to 0. And this is not necessary as well, because again, we're doing showtime. We are refreshing this all the time, so we don't need this function to be executed anywhere else. It's always being executed anyway. Moving on, where were we? I think we're pretty much set. Yeah, we need to have the enabled function again. Okay, so if the timer starts and enabled equals 2, otherwise false. Okay, now I think it should work. Okay, let's try this. We run through this part, our timer starts, our big timer, our big boy timer. Then we do a lap, like so. And come back through the line, and as you can see, here is our last lap time. Let's do another lap very quickly. We didn't beat our time, we got barely under it, unfortunately. Okay, we're not improving our lap time quite, though. Can't stop this thing. This doesn't become 0 because because it's not enabled anymore. So I don't think we need a reset button as well, do we? So let's get rid of that as well. Now what I want to do is I want to also have a fastest lap display. So we're going to throw that in as well. Going to throw it. Let's see, how do we organize this exactly? Let's do 120. Let's do this a little further down, and then move this time a little bit further down. Let's do 80. There we go. And then should we have the top time display our fast time on, or the second one? Let's make this one purple. This will be our fastest time display. We'll do it like so. There we go. And then we have to rename this to our best lap. Will this thing will be free for everyone, or will just be for my game? I'll make this a free model after the stream. It will be updated, but I'm going to make this a free model after the stream. Don't worry about that. And it won't be for my game because my game already has a system. Yeah, let's make this is a good amount of purple. A little bit bright, not too or not too bright actually, just like the yellow here, which is which was our last lap. Okay, now I want to add another variable. Let's split this off. Best, and let's create a new variable called best lap time. And that will also be 0. And then I want straight away that our best lap will be displayed at all times. So let's do number 2 time and then best lap. Did I really call it best lap best? Okay, cool, I guess. But I wanted to call it best lap time. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have to determine when the best lap time is being displayed, and that's pretty much where this comes in. Lap times. and we want to make it, we want to only update our best lap time if our new lap time, if we either didn't set a lap time before or if we improved on our previous best lap time. So what we are going to do is I am going to write best lap if last lap time either is 0, so we haven't had a best lap time so far, we haven't set a single lap, or if our last lap time is smaller than our best lap time, then we will update our best lap time. So best lap time would be equal to our last lap time. Now, if we test our system again, so we do a lap, I'm not going to do the best lap ever. I want to beat the lap next. I want to be able to beat the lap I just set. As you can see, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Good question. A question I don't... Because this should be best lap time, not last lap time, because our last lap time is not 0, obviously. So this never happens. So this should be best lap time, not last lap time. We want to basically update our best lap time if there either wasn't a best lap time yet, or if our last lap time is better than our old or new or current best lap time. So I made that change now. There we go. Now it updates. Now I'm going to try to set a faster lap time so that our best lap time will improve. There we go, it has improved. And now I am going to do a slower lap time to demonstrate that our fast lap time will not change basically. So now we are on a slower lap and only update our last lap down here. And perhaps for consistency or for clarity's sake, we want to make clear that this is the best lap time and this is the last lap time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these two things a little bit more to the, actually both of them. I'm going to move both of them a little bit further to the, not that much. Whoa, not so fast. I want these to be left orientated. Let's do 10. Let's duplicate this one. Move a little bit to the right. Let's make this 80 or whatever works. Actually, let's make this whole thing left oriented for convenience. So 0, 20, but then best. Let's say this is our best time. Let's actually do 30 or 40. Let's do 40. Let's name this text label because this isn't important to us. We never have to touch this label ever again. Let's make this white. Yes, let's do that. Let's copy and paste this label further down as well. Let's call it last. And then if we change the position of our, actually we can take both of these and then go like this, 100. Let's make an estimation. No, that's not right. 40, that will do. This looks better. This looks a lot better now. So now, if anyone's not familiar with the system, they'll immediately be able to tell, oh, this is the best lap time, this is our last lap time. And I think everyone should be able to gather that once this thing starts to go up, when you're on your lap, this shows your current lap, your delta time, the time for how long you've been on a lap. That should be obvious to pretty much anyone. Okay, then after this, we want to move on to we want to replicate it to the server so we can eventually show other players what awesome lap time we managed to set with the system. But we are going to leave that for another time. That would probably take at least another hour to do. It's actually a bit complicated, but it's also very fun to get into that. But we'll leave it until later. And that means I am going to end the stream right now. I'm going to shortly after the stream. I will publish this system. Let's actually make a quick model right now. Meanwhile, if anyone's got any questions about this or wants to know anything, doesn't have to be related to this tutorial, you can ask right now. As I meanwhile set this thing up. Let's make this all the exact same proportions, shall we? Let's make this 30. Let's do that. Let's put them very close to each other. Like so. Going to copy this. Let's call this timer GUI. Then I am going to I want to copy this in my case so I can publish it nicely. So let's group this together. This isn't for tutorial reports anymore. I'm just let's paste the timer GUI in here. So when you get this model, all you have to do is move this timer GUI to start GUI, or better, let's do that quickly as well. Script dot let's do game.players.player added connect function player clone equals script.parent.timer GUI. Let's do it like this. Script.timer GUI clone, and then clone.parent equals player.player GUI. And then we can remove this thing, and if I rejoin the game, there we go, then our timer pops up. Then every time someone joins, that person gets the timer. There we go. So I'm going to publish this in a moment. Meanwhile, I'm going to end the stream right here. This will be up very shortly. I'll paste a link in the chat and in the description of this video. Thank you everyone for watching this video. I'll see you for part 2. I'm not sure when I'm going to record part 2. Probably next week, perhaps on Tuesday again. Anyway, thank you for watching this live stream. I hope you learned something or you were fascinated by the scripting here. If you, hopefully you took away something for tonight, and I'll see you in the next live stream. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.